We've just set up the Kii Three system, as you saw, so it consists of these two Kii Threes on the stands, the key control being the preamp. As you see, it's a pretty small speaker, but nevertheless it's a six-way speaker that you cannot really distinguish at first sight. You think it's a two-way because, of course, you see the tweeter in the mid-range. If you look at it from the side, you can see that there's woofers to the side, and when you go to the back, you'll see the same woofers again in the rear. So it's packed with woofers. It's a six-way system. It has 6 drivers on each side. Each driver has its own amp. So it's a true 6-way active system. Every amp has its own DAC as well. And the whole thing is driven by a DSP, which sits in the middle and handles all those channels. So now what we're doing here is we're having a full range system. That means we have a system that goes as deep as 20 Hertz up to 25 kilohertz, of course, and is linear plus minus 0.5 dB. Biggest problem you have with speakers, of course, is the interaction with the room. You say your speakers are going to excite the room at 50 Hertz, 100 Hertz, or whatever your room is like. It always happens, and the question is, why does that happen? Reason being that the physics has this awkward thing going on where from 700 Hertz downwards, the frequencies get dispersed more and more omnidirectional around the speaker. Starts at 700. 700 is pretty high. I'm speaking with about 200 Hertz now, so it's really, that's where all the music is. Pretty much all the mids, all the vocals, the orchestra is all in the sub 700 Hertz region. Of course, not a cymbal or a hi-hat, but the whole music where it counts, that's where it happens. So in that chunk of the music, everything that's below 700 increasingly gets dispersed omnidirectionally around the speakers, and as a result talks to the wall, gets reflected off the back wall. The closer you are, the worse it gets. The sidewall also plays a role. Ceiling can play a role. Floor can play a role. So all the reflecting surfaces around will reflect at almost the same power than the direct sound, just a tiny bit later. So what happens is you get a build up on some frequencies, you get a build down on some frequencies, you get it mushed up because the timing gets wrong because all of the reflections. Every passive speaker on the planet at any price point has this problem because it's physics. You can't overcome that. There's no way to do that. I always call it an uncontrolled radiator, basically. So you send sound into that speaker and it's going to disperse anywhere it wants, just like physics say. So, and this is a fact that we did overcome. So what you see here is a directional speaker. It's called a cardioid system, cardioid pattern. If you've ever spoken into a microphone, microphones are most of the time cardioid. They only record what you pretty much talk into the front and not what the audience is saying. So this is only recording here, and it's basically the same thing we're doing, just the other way around. We're dispersing everything to the front. This wall, or where I'm sitting here behind the speakers almost, I can't hear any bass. There is nothing. So there's no reflections from that wall. And that wall doesn't even exist for the speaker, as does the side wall not exist, and the other one as well. So we're not getting any build-ups. We're getting a very, very clean, direct sound. It's very forward, and there's basically nothing in the back, because everything that's below 700 Hertz gets pushed to the front and not to the back. And that's why we use the rear woofers to do exactly that, to work in conjunction with the side woofers to form a wavefront out to the front and not to the back. We're simulating or emulating a wall, an in-wall main monitor system, like some of you might have seen in studios where they build huge speakers into the wall. There's a reason why they do that, because there is no behind in such a situation, because it's in the wall. There's nothing behind that can reflect. So everything goes to the front, and that's what we're doing here. What you do, you set them up like I showed you, and you put them pretty much anywhere you think they're pretty in a stereo setup, to the wall, in a corner, to the side wall, unsymmetrically maybe. Maybe there's a a walkthrough on the right and here's a wall to the left. That doesn't matter, you just set them up and they will not see those reflecting surfaces, and those reflecting surfaces will not make problems. So it's always the same sound in any size room, from small rooms to large 200, 300 square meter rooms. Everything's possible. So this is the key control. Right now we're running USB from a streaming server. We can of course volume control, as you can hear. We can mute. We change channel to maybe the TV set, a CD player, or some other input, analog input, and back. Very simple to use, everyone can do that. You can switch the system off by pressing a little longer. We have 14 different proximity positions to independently for both of the speakers. So should you have an unsymmetrical situation where one of the speakers is very much in the corner and the other one is freestanding, you can compensate for that by putting the right speaker in corner position setting and the other in freestanding or wall. There's 14 different positions, and so the sub 50 hertz portion of the signal is being basically suppressed the more you go closer to the reflecting surface. That's all. That's everything that happens. You have a tone control as well. You can see this. So you have two frequencies that you can alter. It's a semi-parametric EQ, that's how it's called. And you can adjust the shelf should you want a little bit more highs or more bass, less bass. You can, it's a bit like the tone control used to be in the early receiver days. And you can tell what the XLR inputs are. Is it digital, is it analog? You can go to auto standby, which I always have on. So that means the moment that you stop the music, you want to go to bed. I don't touch the system anymore. We just wait for 15 minutes and it's going to shut down automatically. Should audio come on again, they switch on automatically. It's very, very convenient. There's no power switch on the system. You can adjust the LED brightness on the speakers. You can turn them all down if you want. You can dim, as I showed you before. So you press dim, then it starts blinking, and you see, okay, now I'm 20 dB lower than I was before. And if you want to listen again, you just click, and you're back to the old level. And you can even adjust that, how much you want to do that. Then there's a latency switch. So in order to do all the directivity that we're doing in the system, we need a bit of time, which is about 80 milliseconds of time to calculate all that in the DSP. And that sometimes can be a little bit of a bugger when you're watching TV and it's not really lip sync anymore because the audio is a bit too late. So we've catered for that. We've put in a latency feature where you can go, latency is exact. Now that means it uses the full math, the full calculation of the system, 80 milliseconds. In music listening, that plays no role at all. If you're playing audio to video, that might come into play. So you enter and you go to minimum latency. Now latency is just a few milliseconds, completely not audible. The sound difference is minimal. It's very hard to distinguish those both modes. Should you run a TV or a set-top box into the key system, you might want to do that for a certain input, for instance. So it's really a complete system. It takes care of all the inputs you might need, and you can run, as I said, analog into the speakers left and right, coming from a phono pre, for instance. Phono pre is always line level, so that has to be attenuated. You can do that with the key control, and because the volume control isn't done here, it's done inside the speakers, so whatever signal runs into the speaker itself also gets attenuated. And the good thing about it is that if you do a digital volume attenuation inside the DSP, it is completely lossless, which is not true for other models of digital attenuations. What used to be a huge system with floor standing speakers of huge dimensions. To be able to go down to 20 hertz, you need quite some massive volume to start with. Big drivers, big cabinets. You need all sorts of paraphernalia to do that. With the Kii system, that's sonically all there and even more, and it's very small and very lifestyleish, pretty and easy to use. And also what we really love about it is that the whole family can use this high-end stereo system easily. You don't have to turn it on, you just feed the signal in, you turn the TV on, go to the preset, speakers come on, playback. So really convenient on the side of all the sonic improvements that you will get with the system. This is also very nice to have the whole family play their music through the different devices that they might have.
Thanks, Chris.